Wow. The 49ers have massive changes incoming. This offseason is going to be even crazier than expected. I'm going to get into all of that in this video in just a moment. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content. But yesterday we learned from John Lynch just how seriously they're taking their average age. He's got a point too. If you think about some of the players on this roster, like Kyle Juszczyk, for example, a great 49er, but he's getting up there in age, and in terms of production and speed and actual value on the field beyond the occasional, the often blocking, he's on his way. Trent Williams. We're not even talking about Trent Williams anymore in terms of like years. It's always year. It's year by year. Last year, year by year. This year by year. That's the way we're talking about him, because we know had they won the Super Bowl last year, like in some crazy world where they didn't go 6-11 and they actually played good football and they won the Super Bowl, Trent Williams would have retired. I genuinely believe that. I don't think he wants to go out on 6-11. He, of course, has a lot left in the tires. He said as much during the season. And toward the end of the season, when things were not looking good, he also made it very clear he wanted to come back. Happy to hear, of course, yesterday that John Lynch confirmed he's going to be coming back. But he's old and he's year to year. And there's a world in which Trent Williams decides after this season he's hanging up the cleats. That could happen. CMC. He might never be back to the old Christian McCaffrey that we saw, the 2023 Offensive Player of the Year kind of quality. He might not ever get back to that level. He turns 29 this summer. How many more years can he go at the rate Kyle prefers to use him? Because Kyle Shanahan, anytime CMC is available, he wants him as his back. He wants him running the ball 25 plus times a game. That's what his hope is. Kyle Shanahan just wants, whenever CMC is healthy, he cannot help himself but get him out on the field, right? John Feliciano, retired. That will help your age a little bit there, right? Let's get into a few more details. I wanted to talk about, firstly, the John Lynch quote itself. And then we have some other things later in the video talking about Jordan Mason and Brandon Aiyuk and other stuff that we're going to get to, so stick around for all of that. But we'll have 4 picks in the top 100, John Lynch reminded. If the comp picks happen like we see it, that's always a calculation. We'll have 10 picks overall, and we're excited about adding more youth to a great core of players that we already have. And that's the key there. Every team wants to get younger. Nobody wants to get older. Every team wants to get younger, but you have to do it in a way that keeps you relevant. You don't want to go from a position the 49ers are in, despite being 6-11. They're a good football team. They should be anyway. On paper, they're a great football team if you just look at the roster. You don't want to go from that to too much change too quickly. That messes up your culture. That messes up, your experience level. That messes up that winning feeling of like, this is how we win football games. We've been there before. You have too many guys gone from the we've been there befores, and before you know it, you don't have any we've been there befores. You have a bunch of guys who've never won football games in the NFL. And you don't want to get in that situation. We've all been there. You know what I mean? You can't just keep pressing the pedal, talking about the age of the players and the money that they're infusing into the football team. And I think there's some good that can come out. We need to get younger. I think we're the oldest team in football trying to make a run at the deal last year, and I think that it's good to constantly get younger. Our draft class last year was a great move towards that, and all full credit to John Lynch. He's absolutely right. They did a great job drafting. By the way, a lot of this coverage came from Joaquin Ruiz from NBC Sports Bay Area, including this. This is Joaquin's writing himself, saying the 49ers are 13th in the league in active cap spending at $243.97 million, according to Over the Cap, and are 4th in dead money with $34.97 million. Those are challenging figures to mull over, considering San Francisco finished 6-11 and last in the NFC West, and has a massive contract extension to work out with Brock Purdy, who is expected to be the 49ers franchise quarterback of the foreseeable future. So the 49ers, to summarize there, 13th in the league in active cap spending, 4th in the league in dead money. Yikes. Those are not the types of numbers you want to hear about. So obviously the 49ers are in a tight financial situation, in certain ways. They do have a lot to spend this year. I think David Lombardi's projecting $60 million for the cap this year. Okay. And you can only do what you can with what you have right in front of you, but not so good next year. We'll see what next year is. And I don't know how much you want to just keep kicking the can down the tire. Kicking the can down the tire. Wow. That was interesting. Kicking the can down the road and just, next year will be next year. But you do have to do some of this planning ahead of time, right? So big changes are incoming. What are those changes? We talked about Kyle Juszczyk. So here's what John Lynch said about Kyle Juszczyk, for example. Juice is a great player, and he's been really valuable to us. So he's part of us. We'll see. We're thinking a lot of things through right now. We're trying to make everything work and some tighter constraints than we've had in the past. What is that tighter constraint? Probably in part, it's Purdy money, but tighter constraints we've had in the past. This is also not typical John Lynch speak. This is John Lynch talking about one of the 49ers' most coveted players in Kyle Juszczyk. So if the 49ers are moving on from Kyle potentially, they can't find a way to keep him around, or if he has to take another pay cut in order to stay in the red and the gold, then that's going to mean change is coming. They're talking about big staple players, leaders on this football team. What have the 49ers been doing about it? Who have they been interviewing? So far, guys, you got to remember, you can't interview everybody. They're not all even there at the combine yet. But so far, the 49ers have formally met heavily with defensive linemen, cornerbacks, and tight ends. That's an interesting thing in itself. Regarding tight ends, by the way, most notably, Colston Loveland out of Michigan. 49ers have been meeting with a lot of Michigan guys. I don't know if you've noticed. What is up with the Michigan defense? It seems like all of the best defensive players, well, let me rephrase. It seems like all of the best defensive players in Michigan always seem to be seniors, and they keep coming into the draft, and they keep going in the first couple rounds. What are they doing over there? What's in the water over there in, Lansing, wherever it is, over there in eastern Michigan? My goodness, it's craziness. But anyway, I think that this is a really good thing to hear that the 49ers are meeting with tight ends. I love to hear that because we absolutely rely heavily on the position. We do need to evolve a little bit. We've talked about doing more two tight end sets on this channel before. I think that's something that I'm really excited about. I'd love to see the 49ers spend some more time considering that as a part of the evolution. We also could find an answer in tight end that covers the fullback situation too. Not that I don't like Juice, not that I want to see him go, but I do feel like at some point, and you kind of, to be totally fair, you want to cut a guy when you still like him. That's the truth. You want a guy to go. Look at the Patriots all of those years when they ran that incredible, it felt seamless. Year after year after year, they were competitive despite losing all of these big name players going to other teams. And the Patriots were not afraid to let go of a guy while they still liked him. That's the difference. I still love you. You have great value, and I'm going to get rid of you now before it's over. Deebo Samuel, I think in a way, now Deebo Samuel might go and have a great season, and I think things could change there. Deebo Samuel might not get traded. That's still not a guarantee. But let's just say Deebo Samuel goes to another team and he doesn't have as good of a year. You kind of look at the last couple of years and think maybe we were a year or two late on Deebo Samuel. And last year, when they were talking about trading him before the draft, maybe they should have done it. Hard to say that. I love Deebo. I really do. Hard to say it. But Jordan Mason is another one of those big change situations the 49ers are making a decision on. What will the 49ers do at running back? We have a running back heavy draft. There's an opportunity here that is not always going to be here. And when you have a lot of guys around and you're thinking about getting a running back, last I heard, a lot of people think that the 49ers are going to take a running back in the 4th to 7th round, kind of late round running back situation. But that also depends a little bit on what happens with some of the other guys on the roster, right? Christian McCaffrey, we think, is going to be healthy. I hope we're going to see the Christian McCaffrey of old because he looked really good momentarily in Buffalo. I thought, okay, he's back. Let's go. That's what we've been waiting for all season. We've been needing it all season. Let's go. And then he gets injured. Completely unrelated to his Achilles tendonitis in both legs. right? But Jordan Mason in the picture, as you can see. Jordan Mason was the 49ers' leading rusher. He also had a little bit of an injury issue. That shoulder injury, that niggling shoulder injury, he could not really come back from. He lost his confidence. He then wasn't running he wasn't running tall in the same way. It was affecting him for sure. He wasn't as confident going into those hits. And that is a concern. And he's a restricted free agent this season. Matt Miyoko, by the way, put together a refresher on what numbers look like if the Niners want to slap a tender on Jordan Mason. This is the short version. They could secure him to a 1-year, $5.35 million contract. That would make him, by the way, I think I have a graphic for that. Yep, that would make him a top 20 running back, giving him $5 million, okay? Is he a top 20 running back? I mean, statistically, averaging over 5 yards a carry, he did pretty well when he was healthy. So you can't really argue there. 49ers could also tender him at $3.27 million. And that would be, is that the right of refusal one? Yeah. That would be the right of refusal. I think I should have probably not put the graphic up before I finished reading it. But whatever. I wasn't planning on reading the whole thing. 49ers could do a Juwan Jennings thing, and they could just sign him to a multi-year extension. Like just come to terms with them and make a deal. But if they go with the $3.27 million, that would put him as a top 25 highest paid running back kind of deal. You could see the names on that list. Who these guys like Etienne and Gus Edwards, all the way up to the Bijan Robinsons, Singletary, who Tony Pollard, who else is on there? Eckler, Gibbs. That's the level of running back we're talking about, at least in terms of the market, what they think, right? The 49ers could decide not to tender him, which would make him an unrestricted free agent. They could still try and get him back if they don't think another team's going to offer him. It's going to be tricky with the draft because of how good this draft is for running backs. A lot of teams are going to have their eyes on the draft to try and bring in a guy because there's always that advantage there instead of having to pay a guy. So it'd be interesting to see if they want to let Jordan Mason test the market. I don't like that reality. I like Jordan Mason. I think he did well. John Lynch, by the way, on Jordan Mason saying there are a number of different options that we're exploring. He played at a really good level. When Christian was out, we'll see where that goes. Not exactly pointing or painting any picture in one direction or the other. Mind you, if you have a top 20 paid running back in Jordan Mason, and you're planning on taking the number 1 paid running back, Christian McCaffrey, who's light years above everybody else, you take him and you continue to just punch the ball through with Christian McCaffrey over and over, and you don't share the load, and you don't try a 1-2 punch, and you don't try and do anything unique, unique at least in terms of your running back room, then you're putting a lot of money into your running back room, even just into your top 2 guys, and you don't even plan on giving Jordan Mason the ball unless Christian McCaffrey gets injured. So there's an issue there too. If Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to split reps between these 2 guys, and he looks at Christian McCaffrey and says, you're going to make $19 million this year. You're my guy. I'm going to give you the ball, and you're going to run the ball as many times as I ask. If that's what happens, then I think a move for Jordan Mason looks interesting. So this is the least confident I've felt that Jordan Mason is going to be a running back for the 49ers next year, and I'm really bummed about that because I was so hyped to see him get his shot this year. He deserved it. He earned it the year before. Was so stoked about that. Obviously, Elijah Mitchell with the injury made it really obvious where things were going to go. But in training camp, it was so obvious. In the very first day, Jordan Mason was the guy. He just was the guy. Love him. One other guy, we don't have time for this one, Brandon Aiyuk. He's been the topic of a lot of conversation. And by the way, while we're talking about running backs, I should remind you, we still have Isaac Guerendo on this roster. We can still draft another guy to this roster. So there are other guys out there like we don't want, like, if the 49ers are going to go out there and draft somebody and you still got Isaac Guerendo and you're paying Christian McCaffrey crazy money, I don't know. I want to see Jordan Mason in a uniform. I just don't know if there's space for him. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe that's, he takes the use check spot, and then you get a tight end who takes they really like Braden Willis. I don't see them getting rid of him. Eric Saubert, maybe. They like him too, but, maybe the tight end takes one of those roles, one of those positions there, and then that tight end could also kind of help you out at fullback. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Brandon Aiyuk, this is an interesting one. We're like way over time already. I try not to make these videos super long, but Brandon Aiyuk has been the topic of a lot of conversation. There's definitely a conversation happening in my current neck of the woods among Broncos fans about if the Denver Broncos are actually one of those teams making those calls to the 49ers, inquiring about BA. From where I stand, I just beyond just my totally my opinion. Okay, it's just opinion. I don't think it's realistic. But if John Lynch was trying to ward off any interest in Brandon Aiyuk, he did a horrible job answering the question, convincing people that the 49ers aren't listening to offers. In other words, in contrast, he basically said, please give us a call, give us offers. We'd love to hear what you're interested in, and we'd love to hear if you want Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, John Lynch went out of his way to talk about finances and age of the roster and all this other stuff when all he had to say is Brandon Aiyuk just signed a mega deal with the 49ers. He wouldn't say that, but you know what I mean. He just signed a deal with the 49ers. We're really happy with him. We can't wait to see him get back to full health and be in the Niners uniform. He's not going anywhere. Like, he doesn't have to make a big deal out of it, but he did, and that made things weird. And then the 49ers already have a ton in projected dead cap, so I don't see them increasing that number on top of Deebo's projected numbers as well, by the way. Just seems wild to me. I don't see Brandon Aiyuk going anywhere. I think he's going to be in a Niners uniform in the coming season. We're going to see him work his way back from injury, and I don't see the 49ers moving on from him. I think it's going to be too much of a financial impact. However, John Lynch didn't exactly do himself any favors in that particular area of argument. And word on the street is that the 49ers will be expecting more opportunities for Jacob Cowing as well, which I think is fantastic. His lightning speed and the little bit that we got to see in training camp, in preseason, it looked very promising. Honestly, it was difficult for me to not see him getting more reps out there, especially toward the latter half of the season when it was looking like the playoffs weren't going to happen. I wanted to see him out there, but I remember Deommodore Lenoir talking about how hard it is to get hands on him because of the way he cuts, and I really have high hopes for Jacob Cowing. It would be awesome to see him out there more. So, obviously he's got to live up to it, but he made some outstanding catches in preseason. I know it's just preseason, but you gotta bear with me. It's the only thing I have. It's the only thing we have to work at. And if you're talking about drafting a wide receiver, we have nothing on that NFL play of a wide receiver in the draft. So, don't be down on me because I want to see Jordan Mason, because I want to see Jacob Cowing out there. I'm hyped about it. Let me know what you guys think. This is a crazy time. The 49ers are going through a huge transition, and it all hinges, at least in part, on the NFL draft in 56 days. This is going to be crazy. Let me know what your thoughts are. As always, appreciate you. And if you're still sticking around to this point of the video, you are a legend. Legend status for you. If you remember that, you know who you are. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Have a fantastic evening.